Japan. Beautiful country, great food. Terrible time to be a samurai in 1868. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Let's go back, way back. Hey, stop right there. Don't walk away. My name is Samurai Jojo Oliver. Nice to meet you. And yes, I know the armor is a lot. Bear with me. You picked a very specific moment to show up in Japan. And things here are getting very strange, very fast. Not strange like your country's elections. Strange like the entire ruling class of this nation is about to lose everything permanently in roughly 1 decade. I'm talking about the samurai, my people. For about 700 years, we were Japan's warrior elite. Fighters, yes, but also administrators, landlords, and government officials. We collected stipends from the shogunate. We carried 2 swords everywhere we went. And we had the actual legal right to cut down any commoner who showed disrespect. That was a real law, by the way. I'm not making that up. Look it up. But here is where it gets complicated. The Tokugawa shogunate, the military government that had ruled Japan since 1603, was very good at exactly one thing: keeping everything completely frozen. No foreign trade allowed, no outside ideas welcome, no wars. Japan sealed itself off from the world for over 200 years under a policy called Sakoku, which basically translates to chained country. And during all that peace, the samurai had nothing to fight, nothing at all. So they became bureaucrats, they shuffled papers, they attended ceremonies, they collected their stipends and tried to look impressive. Some managed it fine. Others were deeply, catastrophically in debt. A warrior class with no wars is kind of like a surgeon with no patience. You still pay them, you still respect them, but something essential has quietly gone missing. By the early 1800s, Japan had roughly 2 million samurai. 2 million? That sounds powerful, until you remember the country's total population was about 30 million people. So roughly 1 in every 15 people was technically a samurai collecting a government stipend to exist and look intimidating. I want you to think about that budget for a second. The shogunate was funding an enormous class of hereditary warriors who hadn't fought a serious war in generations. And the problem with paying people simply to exist is that the math stops working eventually. Samurai families had been splitting their stipends across children for generations. Some received amounts so small they could barely eat. Many quietly worked side jobs as farmers or craftsmen while technically maintaining samurai status. So the warrior class of Japan was already crumbling from the inside, long before anyone with a cannon showed up. Then, in 1853, something arrived that nobody in Japan was remotely ready for. 4 massive black ships appeared in Edo Bay, American warships, commanded by Commodore Perry, who did not come with good intentions and a fruit basket. He came with steam power, iron hulls, cannons that Japan's military had no real answer for. He came with a letter from the American president demanding Japan open its ports to foreign trade immediately. And Japan, which had spent 2 entire centuries telling the world to stay away, suddenly found itself staring at weapons it had never seen and couldn't match. The samurai stood on the shore and watched. Some had never seen a steamship before in their lives. The technology gap was not subtle. It was enormous, humiliating, and completely impossible to ignore. Japan signed Perry's treaties the following year. The ports opened. The argument started immediately. What do you actually do when your entire identity is built around being the strongest, and then something far stronger shows up uninvited? That is a genuinely uncomfortable question, and the Japanese government handled it about as gracefully as you'd expect. Half the country said adapt, modernize, learn from the West fast. The other half said throw every foreigner out, restore the emperor, preserve everything. The rallying slogan was "Sono Joy," revere the emperor, expel the barbarians. Very catchy phrase. Completely impossible strategy given that Japan's military technology was literally centuries behind. But passion doesn't always wait for logic. 2 powerful samurai clans in the south, Satsuma and Choshu, decided the shogunate had embarrassed itself beyond any possible recovery. It had allowed foreigners in. It had failed Japan. And failure to a samurai was not something you just walked back from. So they overthrew it. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 was not a calm political handover. There was actual fighting. But the clans of Satsuma and Choshu, armed with newer Western-style weapons and absolute conviction that they were correct, dismantled the shogunate's military forces. They rallied behind Emperor Meiji, a teenager who had spent his entire life as a ceremonial figurehead, with 0 real political authority. And they restored imperial rule to Japan for the first time in centuries. Dramatic, swift. And here is the part I find deeply, personally painful. The whole stated purpose was to expel the foreigners and restore traditional Japan. The absolute moment they succeeded, the new government looked at Europe, looked at America, and said, okay, we are copying all of this. Starting now. The Meiji government moved extraordinarily fast. Railways, telegraphs, Western-style universities. A new legal system modeled on French law. Modern factories. They sent Japanese students abroad to study everything. They hired Western experts to come teach inside Japan. And they built a new conscript army, meaning any man from any social class could be drafted and trained as a soldier. Not just samurai anymore. Farmers, merchants, fishermen, ordinary commoners who, under the old system, would have been required to bow their heads when a samurai walked by on the street. Now those same men were being handed modern rifles and told they were Japan's defenders. And if any commoner with a few months of training can become a soldier, what exactly are you paying 2 million hereditary warriors for? The Meiji government had a very clear answer to that question. Nothing. Turns out you were paying them for absolutely nothing. In 1873, Japan introduced universal military conscription. In 1876, the government banned samurai from wearing their swords in public. The swords, not decorative ones, the actual 2 swords every samurai carried daily as a physical symbol of their rank and authority, banned, gone. And then the stipends started disappearing too. The government converted them into government bonds, which sounds almost polite until you realize many of those bonds paid out so little that samurai families genuinely could not survive on them. Some tried farming. Some became merchants, which was a class that samurai had historically looked down on with considerable contempt. Some became police officers, at least adjacent to the old life. But many fell into genuine poverty because nobody had ever once suggested to a samurai that a backup plan might be useful. How do you think that felt? I'm asking you sincerely. Your entire identity, your family's identity, going back 7 full centuries, your social status, your income, your weapons, all of it legally stripped away in about 10 years by the very government you personally helped put in power. That is an extremely rough decade, and many samurai were not quiet about their feelings. There were scattered uprisings, small rebellions in various regions, angry petitions that went nowhere. The frustration was real, and it was building steadily. And it had one specific focal point in the south, in Satsuma, because Satsuma was home to the most powerful remaining samurai clans. And Satsuma was where one very large, very famous, very unhappy man had gone home to think about what had become of everything he believed in. His name was Saigo Takamori. Calling him famous is genuinely underselling it. He was arguably the most celebrated samurai alive at the time. He had helped lead the Meiji Restoration personally. He was enormous, physically and in terms of reputation. He believed completely in restoring Japan's honor. And then he watched the new government he helped create dismantle the samurai class piece by piece, year by year. He resigned from the government in 1873 over a foreign policy disagreement and went home to Satsuma. He opened private military academies to train young samurai in traditional disciplines. He wasn't openly calling for revolution. He was just, let's say, keeping certain specific skills very sharp. But when the Meiji government decided those academies were a threat and moved to shut them down, Saigo's students raided a government weapons depot first. And then things escalated significantly beyond anyone's control. The Satsuma Rebellion of 1877 was the last major armed resistance the samurai class ever mounted. Around 40,000 fighters gathered under Saigo's leadership. They had swords, they had some firearms, they had centuries of warrior tradition and a remarkable amount of personal pride. The Meiji government responded by deploying roughly 60,000 conscript soldiers, former farmers, former merchants, men who, 15 years earlier, would not have been permitted to carry a weapon anywhere near a samurai. Those conscripts came with modern rifles, artillery, and supply chains backed by an industrializing nation, moving at extraordinary speed. The samurai charged into rifle volleys. Some accounts describe groups drawing swords and rushing artillery positions because they had simply nothing else left to offer. It was devastating and deeply one-sided. The rebellion collapsed over several brutal months of fighting across the south of Kyushu. Saigo Takamori died on September 24, 1877, on a hill near Kagoshima during the final engagement. His followers carried him there after he was gravely wounded. Whether he died in the fighting or ended his life in the samurai tradition, accounts differ. His remaining men surrendered shortly after. And with that, it was over. No more major uprisings. No going back. The Meiji government had demonstrated that a conscript army of commoners equipped with modern weapons could defeat the most elite warrior class in Japanese history. My people adapted quietly after that. Some became politicians. Some joined the new military as officers. Some became teachers. But the sword stayed home. Here, take this before you leave. My name was Samurai Jojo Oliver, and I'm going to go figure out what a government bond actually is.